I like these, and I just want to play with them. And it's more fun to play with them with someone else than it is to play with them.
You need to finish that sentence. You need to get Play With Yourself into the show. Hello, I'm Nick. I know that because I've got a label on me now. And this is Talking at a Slot, which has also got a label on it which says podcast about toy cars.
Hello, I'm Scott. My label fell off. or perhaps I've been mislabeled. Anyway, it's the start of the year, so that means January sale bargains. Guess who got one? Me. And also anticipation for range launches and the year ahead in general. I don't think we're going to be making any resolutions. Are we making any resolutions? No. I'm not making any resolutions, but anyway. So yeah, it's all that kind of new year. I'll start afresh. All the counters go to 0. Slot cars bought this year is actually already at 2. But that's all.
That's good work.
Shall I expand on that one?
Yeah.
So the nature of this was I was trawling the slot internet as you do, and looked on Pendle's site, and they had a couple of a set Ginetta LMP cars, which I've got a kind of love-hate relationship. I don't really like the real car because it was a bit of a joke, and the liveries and stuff on the real cars have been not good, and the slot cars have not been good. However, the liveries on these caught my attention because they were of a very famous high street retailer. And I looked at this and I thought, I must go and check. That looks like it's from a set. And sure enough, it was a Christmas special for this retailer.
It's not the BBC. You can say who it is.
It's John Lewis and Waitrose, which I think are the most unlikely slot car sponsors ever. So, but the great thing was, and this is sort of consumer advice really, Pendle had just the cars for 70 quid plus postage. If you go onto John Lewis's own website, you can get the whole set for 65 quid and delivery's free. So, bargain if you want some sport track.
As fantasy liveries go, it's slightly bizarre. What are the details of the said cars? It's got like fruit and veg section, high fashion.
I'm going to try and hold up a very large box in front of a very small camera, and the lights are going to show. So I'll put pictures up. But the cars are green.
Right.
And one of them is I'd say it's a homage to the not terribly successful Van Wall from last year in the World Endurance Championship. And as much as it's dark green with some highlights, and it's in a sort of satin finish. It's very lovely. And the other one is slightly lighter green.
What are the driver names? Is it like Hinge and Bracket or Penelope Keith and Sandy Toksvig? Because I see them in our Waitrose.
It's J. Lewis. And one of the on the Waitrose car, it's something wait and somebody rose. So there's a degree of wit going into this, which I quite like. Anyway, the more interesting background to this, and I think I told you this at the time. The Scale Auto Mitsubishi rally car, which much anticipated, and the liveried versions are finally available. The Mackinnon car is already sold out, as far as I can see, on the Spanish sites. And so the Burns car was still available, but thought it's going to go quickly. So I put it in the basket, dithered, thought about it, took it out the basket. Put it in the basket, dithered, thought about it. This is going to be 80 quid delivered, and I'm sort of dithering about, 3 times I did that and took it out and felt very good about myself, I resisted. I had resisted. Literally minutes later, I've discovered this Waitrose set for 65 quid. Buy! So Scale Auto's loss was John Lewis's gain. So that was very. So I have already had the box open.
There's going to be a Spanish person sitting there scratching his head, going, "Really? You chose that?"
What's the equivalent? Is there a Spanish chain store that would be the equivalent?
There must be, but I can't.
Can't think of it. But it prompted, and we have to be slightly careful. Previously, we have discussed what other unlikely retail outlets would have twin set sponsored cars. I think you very humorously had said you were looking forward to the Kath Kidson set.
Yes, absolutely. I think that
which would be obviously
as a pair.
lovely pastel colours and that sort of thing. I think they'd be quite nice. I don't know what other ones could make. What retailers you'd least likely to find slot cars in.
Yeah, quite. I mean, there's so few. If it's a Surrey-based one, it's going to be an estate agent or a charity shop because there's nothing else left.
I suppose you could have an Audi, an Aldi, and a Lidl one, so they could have a fraternal battle.
Popular at Christmas.
Absolutely, yeah. Wear the Christmas jumper, race the Scalextric cars. Be quite good. I'm surprised because they, both of those stores do runs with Airfix where it's specially boxed models at astonishingly low prices. So it's the same model you can buy normally, but it's slightly different packaging, and they flog them for not quite half the price, but nearly half the price that you would pay into model shop. So if they ever did get into doing slot car sets, great. I should say that what I paid for the John Lewis set was half the retail. So anybody who got one for Christmas from their uncle or auntie, they paid more than that. And I suspect, as we get to Swindon Swap Meet at the weekend, how many John Waitrose sets will be piled high at a markup on 65 quid. The other thing that I noticed in January sales was, now can't even remember where I saw it, the blue Reliant Regal, is it?
Oh yeah, 20 quid for that now, isn't it?
20 quid some places, but still 39 quid some other places.
Yeah.
And you discovered the Bluesmobile for an astonishing...
I got it for 26 quid.
Has it arrived yet?
It should be today. It might even happen whilst we're recording. There could be an unboxing, everyone.
A live door answering.
Ratings would go through the roof.
So it's January sale time. Get out there and grab those bargains. That's the moral of that story. So so I'm 2 cars up. What about you?
Yeah, so the Bluesmobile doesn't count because it was before the 1st of January, I think, and also it was Christmas money from my mother. So
I think those are technicalities. I think you're getting it.
Yeah, okay.
I think you call that 1. Yeah, you're 1.
Yeah, so I'm at 1 and staying that way until I get a job.
Okay.
I've got parts that need to be bought, so that's sort of my mission at Swindon, is to turn the cars that I'm definitely not going to use into slot car parts to make my cars move, let alone quickly, in competition. So yeah, I mean, there's nothing really. So we've now got the last of the 2023 releases have come out or are coming out. So there is a Lerb Puma that should be coming. Whether it's pink or whether it's purple, and whether it should be one or the other is still a question in my mind and many other people's, I believe.
I have to be, just from pictures only, I don't think it's pink. I don't think it's necessarily the right colour, but I don't think it's pink. So
No. Well, somebody who knows the cars very well addressed the situation. Having held one and went, it's a different colour and it's not right. And they should know.
Does this person happen to work for M Sport by any chance?
They don't work for M Sport, but they work with M Sport quite a lot.
Okay.
So yeah, he sort of went, no, if you look at the sample that was out in the summer and then look at what is hitting the shops this week, it's a little bit different. I can probably live with it looking at the pictures. I didn't have a major issue with the Bastos Camaro, I have to say. It's the quickest car I've got for running in muscle cars, and that's all I really care about. So yeah, happy days on that front. We'll see. The Jaguars have finally made it, the Mark 1, Mark 2, and a lot of happy people, a lot of nitty picking, flush windows. Flush windows were not a thing in 1958. Yeah, it's.
But how? I mean, 1/32 of how? I mean, how unflush were the windows? They were only about.
They were definitely recessed. The pillars were pillars, and they weren't smooth to the touch. So I'm still glad that I've got my PCS kit 1 resin,
right.
And it's still not completely morsed, actually. I still haven't got the number plate decals printed off. And somewhere I've got a little photo-etched leaper for the bonnet. Can I find it? No. Which is one of the reasons why I've been labelling things, Scott.
That sounds dangerously like filing, if you ask me.
It is very much like filing, but of less boring stuff. So I've obtained, been given, donated by a Lawrence, who had some spare ones, some little boxes. And look, I've got labelled on here exactly what's in each compartment. So I feel like almost like a proper engineer. Because all this stuff has been around what I like to call the office, because it gives me slightly more self-esteem, otherwise known as the spare bedroom. And now it's starting to look a bit more like a spare bedroom again, rather than a spare place where I'm banned the Hoover because I know that I dropped a screw last week. I found all the screws, I've put them in compartments, and they're all labelled. So,
fabulous.
Life is taking on some order in 2024. There's a resolution.
Yeah. It's only January the 5th. Don't worry, that won't last. What if you find yourself struggling with anything to file? Please feel to come over and do, because I've got bags of tyres that need to be finding.
Yeah, I've just thrown them all into a box and labelled the box tyres. That's that.
That's kind of what I did. But you'll be buying things from Spain and parts. I have been buying parts from Spain for rally cars, but not quite what you. I'm going to hold up to the camera to tiny plastic bags. Which contain little tiny pieces of plastic, which are in fact replacement door mirrors for Sierras and Peugeot 30. What's it? What's the one you like? 307. Sevens. I wanted to say 309. That would be very old, wouldn't it? So yeah, these arrived, and so obviously not been applied yet. But I was very impressed with the actual branding on the packet. It says Mini Racing Studios. I just bought them on eBay, but. So yeah, not quite the same as I'm just trying to put wing mirrors back, because I hate it. It's sort of not too bad when you lose both wing mirrors, but it's when it's only got one. Somehow or other that just does that annoys me. That does. Leaping back to things which are pink. Finally arrived.
Fab One's arrived. How does it go? What's it look like? It's windows flush. Nobody cares. See, that's a car.
As long as it's pink.
They've got a free pass. As long as it's pink and got 6 wheels, roughly in the right spot. I've had a couple of queries from people going, well, I'm not sure that the angle of the windscreen's quite right. Really?
Yeah. I've just this vision of somebody with a freeze frame on their VHS trying to get a protractor up, going, what's the angle of the screen on the car? Oh dear. Yeah.
It's if Thunderbirds is your thing, and fortunately I'm a bit too young for Thunderbirds. It was on some stuff. I watched a bit of Joe 90 every Saturday, as you can tell. But yeah, that was my nickname at the BTCC. Alan Gow when at Joe 90. So yeah, it was. But yeah, it's there, it's out, and so too is the Wally Jeans Porsche 911 3-litre RSR.
This sets me up to say that you have developed something of an affection for the Scalextric's 911 RSR, haven't you?
Well, I always had one because the old 70s, what was it, C124?
Don't you start quoting numbers at me.
Yeah, got to do that. 124, 125, could get a Javelin. Don't know if you gave the serial number. I want to see 124. Oh, well, not that, no. But the Porsche was the first car I bought individually, or was bought individually. It was the one that I wanted for the first available birthday after I got my set. So I had 2 cars in the set, and then the first car that I wanted more than anything was a Martini Porsche. Mm-hmm. And it's been much maligned over the years, and obviously they sold it as a 935, a 911, a 911 Turbo, and whatever else. It's just an RSR, and actually quite a nice model of one. And it was my favourite car to drive, so I spent all my time, even though I bought other cars, one a year, as a child.
It was a year. Imagine that. Children today, say slot car fans today wouldn't believe that. one car a year.
I know. Anyway, there's helplines for that sort of stuff these days. And my dad would drive me to the toy shop, smoking as he went. No seatbelts to be seen. Actually, no, Dad was quite a stickler for seatbelts, but he was also quite happy to smoke away on our way to Beatty's to pick up my annual slot car. And it was just a wonderful thing, and it still is. And I still love my old school RSRs. Looked at the new one, thought, yeah, that's all right. I've seen some quibbles. I've seen little critiques made, which are not necessarily rosy. But I've also seen a lot of people saying, ooh, this is really good. It goes well, and it goes well without the magnet in it. Now, I've got one. I've got the Golf one, and it's now red because it's going to be one of my Slot Rally GB entries for 2024, running in the standard Scalextric class. So, whatever,
I've just had a thought. Dominoes were falling as you were speaking, which was to say, because I was going to say you turn everything into a slot rally car. And then I thought, if you got a Fab 1, would you turn that into a rally car? And would it qualify because it's got two people in it? Because is Lady Penelope sitting in the... Does Lady Penelope
on that note, look, here's John Lennon's Mini, which I've turned from a rally car into John Lennon's Mini. So...
A rear reversal of
exactly.
That,
it's got two people in it. It's got Magic Alex. It's got John Lennon. It's.
Sorry, I interrupted you. Look, back to the 911.
Yes. So they are very good things. Let's say it's a continuation of a theme 50 years on or whatever. Scalextric's got another good RSR. And I did obviously, regular listener might remember that I got into a habit of doing Subarus because I thought that the Subarus would be quite a good car. I was not entirely wrong, but also they're not great. So I'm going to give the Porsche a try. Also, it's just nice. So there was a 911 3-litre RSR which took part in the European Historic Rally Championship last year. He came second in Category 2 for cars 1970 to 75, beaten by a Ford Escort. So,
everything was,
yeah. Well, Paolo, who owns it. He's got 3 of them for set up for different surfaces. So he used to rally Porsche 911s in the late 70s, early 80s, and he's still doing it. And I've made up the decals to
just like us, really. We played with slot cars in the late 70s, and we still do.
Exactly.
It's no different. Yep.
He's having fun with that, and hopefully I'll have some fun with it too. So the only real question is, where have all the Kaliber Sierras gone? Because looking at the 2023 releases, looking at the ones that I wanted from the range announcement, the Kaliber Sierra was high up there because I have a number of Sierras, and the Kaliber one's a favourite, and I've got the Steve Soper Texaco one, so could recreate the marvellous battle on the Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit. Mm-hmm. They've all gone. Or they've all gone to people who are now demanding 90 quid for them on eBay, which is just upsetting. Stop it, please. I just want a Kaliber Sierra for reasonable money. It's not a lot to ask. It's not a lot to ask.
The last time you were saying something like this was about Danny Sordo Hyundais, and you managed to find one of those. So don't give up hope.
I'm not giving up hope. It's just annoying. But I can't afford to buy one anyway at the moment, so that's life. I'll sell some stuff and I will buy parts with it. But a whole business of buying and selling stuff has taken a bit of a turn, hasn't it, this week? With the fact that data is going to be sent to Big Brother so that we can potentially be taxed if we sell, 20 Scottic cars from our collections.
Well,
in the course of 12 months.
Yeah, as I understand it, the rule hasn't changed, so they're not introduced a new tax. It's just that they're going to make it easier to enforce it. And crudely speaking, is if you make more than £1,000 trading on places like eBay, then you have to pay tax on it. But the definition of what's a trader is a little bit... Well, I think there's a sort of element of common sense involved. So, a good explanation I heard was if you buy 20 cars last week and you list them on eBay this week and you sell them, you're probably a trader. If you're selling some of the cars you bought 20 years ago, then you're not a trader, which is the category I would fall into. But I get there's a little bit of a flutter of excitement going across the internet waves about the whole thing.
I like the one which said, well, if I bought a Porsche 40 years ago and sold it now at 50 grand profit, it would not interest anyone in the slightest. Whereas if I sell 20 slot heads, I now have to answer to the authorities.
Yeah. But that seems, well, yeah, I've done that. That seems fair. I'm not sure about VAT is not eligible on second-hand cars, is it? I don't think. Not if you're selling, if you're by private transaction. So,
yeah, weird. Anyway,
we don't don't listen to us for slot car advice. Certainly don't listen to us for tax advice. This vision
or
of
any financial advice whatsoever. Because we'll just say, how many slotters is that?
Yeah, well, don't listen to us for advice. You're completely throwing me now. It was something you said that had piqued man. I can't think what it was.
Don't tell me I said something interesting, please.
No, you did. You definitely said something interesting. But anyway, it'll come to me. I'm old. I forget things. One thing I haven't forgotten, because it sparked one of my fondest memories, which was this week I went and played toy cars with my friend David. He's got a lovely big track, and we just spent the afternoon. And he's recently discovered the joys of Cartrix 50s Grand Prix cars. And he's sold some of his collection to buy some of those because they're not cheap, sadly, these days. Unfortunately, I bought a lot of them at the time, so I took mine over there, and we didn't do racing as such, but we just fell into the sort of doing lap after lap after lap, but just the two of us kind of tailing each other and sliding around the corners and it was just fun. It was just joy. Them watching these cars drift about. We were going quickly, and quickly enough that occasionally came off, but we weren't racing. And it was just great. And I thought, if I could capture this somehow or other, this is what we want to do. It was having fun playing with toy cars.
Yes.
That's what it's all about.
Yeah.
Because I do have a theory, completely unscientific, that there's a whole bunch of people who buy cars to go racing, and that's what they do, and they buy lots of parts, and they end up going to a slot rally with a Porsche that isn't really a rally car with lots of bits and all that sort of stuff. And that's fine. That's what they do. That's their hobby. This is not a dig at you for doing that, but there's in anything, any of the clubs, there's always somebody who's. In the old days, they'd buy 10 cars to find the best axles, wouldn't it? These days, you can just buy the spare parts. I've always been on I like these, and I just want to play with them. And it's more fun to play with them with someone else than it is to play with them. So you go to a club environment, and everybody's terribly competitive.
You need to finish that sentence. You need to get play with yourself into the show.
There's a lot of solo play. There's a lot of pleasure to be had from solo play.
That hole's just getting deeper now.
I think there's a lot of men in sheds and lofts playing with themselves, and it's all fine. Don't be ashamed. Hello, I'm Scott. I'm 61, and I play with toy cars. But no, but unintended double entendres aside. So, but I often think that they don't hear that. So I think there's a whole bunch of people who are either into this or would like to get into this, but think, well, I'm not into collecting them, and I'm not really into racing them. I just want to have some, and I want to play with them, So hence they're having fun playing with toy cars. So That was great. And the fact, when I tell you that we started at about 2:00 in the afternoon, and then only when it gets dark early, so that didn't mean much. But I finally left at 8:30. Now, we hadn't been playing with toy cars the entire time, but we did enough laps that we made the tyres hot and bobbly just going round the polycar track. And these were just standard Cartrix cars. But lovely. I mean, it reminded me of those models. So they're not accurate. Going back to the criticisms we level at our friends from Margate. Those
some of them cars are foul. that BRM P25 is like it was studied from a great distance.
Yeah, they're not necessarily the right shape. The tyres are too wide. Blah, 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 blah. But there's a charm to them. The finish of them, they look good. There's a charm to them. Having almost delivered a compliment to Scalextric, I'm going to take it away straight away, because we then got out the Hornby equivalents. So the Maserati, the Van Wall, from 20 years ago, 15 years ago?
It's knocking on 20 years, isn't it?
Yeah. Absolutely beautiful, lovely models, I think. Very accurate. The detail on the brake drums, which you can't really see, is beautiful. It's all there. The mould for the driver, Fangio has got a slight tilt to his head, and you can go. I can tell that's Fangio, I think. And the sort of depressing thought was, could Scalextric do those today? Would they want to? I don't mean necessarily that level of detail and finesse. Maybe it's too expensive. Maybe that's the fact. But I don't know. But I kind of felt Scalextric could knock it out of the park if they did this level of detail. And I compare it to...
I remember the griping, though, at the time, because they were some of the first cars to have the round guide blade, and everyone was like, couldn't you have just held off the round guide blade until you got these beautiful things out, because you've got that bulge under the nose? It's like, you can't really see it.
I was going to say, I don't even notice that. Even I would. You're right. I remember it being, but I don't.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know.
They're lovely things. We raced them at the club. I've managed somehow to convince a Van Wall to keep up with the Maseratis, because it is a bit top heavy when you take the magnet out, so it's full of putty in the bottom. And now that, I mean, they are lovely, lovely things. Can they do? Yeah, I think they can, to an extent, do those sorts of models, I think.
I'd like to think so. I just don't think we're seeing it. And now, maybe there is, as I say, it may be to do that level of, I'm going to call it finesse, because I think that's the right word. So it's not just detail. That level of finesse is too expensive. They would end up being twice the price or whatever. Maybe.
Yeah.
Or maybe there's not enough people who care. They just want, car that looks
that was
like
back in the days when there were sport versions with sport wrapped engines, which allegedly had more RPMs and never did.
Not just so-called limited editions, which were limited to 6,000 units. They would be. I mean, again, not to give away any confidences, but some of the runs of cars are down just over 1,000 these days, aren't they? Yeah. So, I mean, the market has clearly changed dramatically. Well, maybe we'll find out. When we go to Swindon, we'll track down somebody from the... Actually, I don't know if anybody from the manufacturers will be there. Poor Simon, he gets stalked to try and give it. But we'll find out. Anyway, so that was... The upshot of all of that was that my slot car mojo, not that it was in any way lacking, was definitely well topped up by having several hours just doing lap after lap with some... Not terribly accurate, not terribly quick, but lovely to play with toy cars.
David's been an enormous help with his track, particularly his Ninko one, he's clearly replaced with Polycar now. But he kept such a good record of his performance with cars that he was like, I need a car for this class. Which one would you recommend? Because he's just kept all the data and kept updating it. So... he does have
he has a lot of data. It's quite impressive, or quite worrying, depending on how you look at it.
Yeah, fair enough. But
I can barely remember where I've put the car. Never mind what tyres it's on, what motor was in it, and how fast it goes.
Well, he's probably, I don't know if he's on any other forums, but he's on Slot Forum, and going back through his posts is very informative if you're looking to choose something for a class, particularly as we run on Ninko track. So thank you, David, for all your help over the years.
I'm looking down the things we talked about driving, or sorry, to things about we're talking about, and I think we've done an amazing job of rattling through it all. But one thing you possibly too modest to talk about, maybe not, I don't know, but you've been commissioned to write about slot car people for Motorsport magazine.
I have. Yes. So they asked me November-ish, I think, Well, it's Damo, actually, who's, I don't know what he is these days, features head, possibly. Would I be interested? He and I are mates 25, 6 years. He was a cub reporter at Autosport covering, I think, Formula Vauxhall Junior when I was British Touring Car Championship press officer. He did end up wearing another press officer's purple underpants on his head when he got a little bit too inebriated after Alton Park once. And anyway.
And there's the quote for the beginning of the show. Yeah.
That sort of a thing happened. Fire extinguishers occasionally went off in the hotel at Brands Hatch, that sort of a thing. Formula Ford drivers primarily. Can't trust them. Because they're all 12. Anyway.
Yes, mentally, certainly, if not physically. Yeah.
Staying in a hotel with motorsport journalists who drink too much and stuff happens. 12-year-olds and drunk journalists. Yeah, it's no good. Damo said, could I write a piece about why I love slot cars and how we race at the club, which is what I did. And I got the guys at the club to say a few things, and it was all nice. Anyway, the editor wasn't consulted about this at all. Damo just asked me. And the editor's come back and said, yeah, can you ditch all the stuff about why you're interested in it and just talk to more people and we'll run it. So I've been tapping people up the last week or so. And yeah, I mean, there's no fee involved. It's just to talk about the hobby, really, and to put it out there in one of the nicer magazines in the world. So we've got Jason Fong is going to come and take pictures. Now, I love Jason. He's my favourite motorsport photographer. And he does a lot of stuff for all the glossies. So he's going to come and take some pictures, which means I've really got to work on the fit and finish in some of my cars. And yeah, at the end of this month, we're going to have a bit of a get-together at our club. It's a regular night, but we'll do some odds and sods. And Jason will be around taking snaps. And there will be a piece resulting. But a few people from the slot car world will be featuring in the feature.
Okay. As long as you work on a big plug for Talking Utter Slot, that's got to be.
Well, I'm interviewing you shortly, so if you don't talk about Talking Utter Slot, I don't know what else you're going to talk about other than John Lewis bloody fantasy liveries.
Well, and you won't be surprised on me, having said I don't bother racing, having taken the magnets out of them, I thought, wouldn't it be fun to find out which one's fastest? So... completely
we need an Ocado one as well, and a Sainsbury's delivery.
So, actually, if we made proper YouTube videos, that would be a good one. We could buy up a whole load of cheap Ginettas. You could re-livery them as high street retailers, and we could present, consumer advice through the prism of slot car lap times and. See which one would be the fastest. Anyway, the upshot of my trying to establish which one was fastest between two effectively random cars was I pulled the same lap time from both of them eventually. So, which says the consistency of manufacturer is pretty good, I guess. Yeah. So it was up good.
I tell you what, you've just taken me. My mind has just spun off. Deliveroo.
Was I being boring?
Right. The concept of MotoGP bikes should be revived for mopeds with boxes on the back, and it could be Domino's, Deliveroo. Yeah, there's a set for you right there. Lots of hidden obstacles like pedestrians.
Well, maybe that's because I know they're not the range announcements which are coming up, and we're all looking forward to on January the 9th.
January the 9th.
So a mere 4 days away. But they're not going to, they've said already, they're not going to announce everything because they're fed up with us going, oh, that thing's only finally arrived, like Fab 1. So they're only going to talk about what they're going to launch in the next immediate few months, I think, which leaves way for a kind of springtime announcement. Somewhere around about April the 1st, say. So if you wanted to announce a kind of moped delivery set where it was perfect. So there, Simon. Nobody listens to this show, so you could do that, and it'll be a big surprise. But yeah, that's definitely. In fact, you've got me. Do you ever watch the Hot Wheels racing series on YouTube? The 3D bot maker.
No, but there is a guy on. He's got a NASCAR thing, and he gets the Hot Wheels NASCARs, and he tries to decipher who's going to win the next weekend's race.
Oh, 3D bot maker. I don't know why they're called that and but they make these wonderful, elaborate. They build these huge tracks with scenery and everything and people, and they have heats of 4 cars. And they do 4 races, and they would score points, and then they all move for. These go on for. I mean, there's like people sending cars from all over the world, and they do a commentary over the top, which is fantastic. So 3D bot maker, Hot Wheels, YouTube, you'll find them. They do racing and they do rally ones, but same track, just different cars. Anyway, I think we should do the Talking Utter Slot retail delivery challenge.
Well, then there's good use for the vans.
Well, the Reliant vans, which are clearly not selling very well, because they're getting flushed out at 20 quid. Relivering Reliant vans as a sort of it's a knockout for shops.
Yeah.
It's the way forward. What decal makers all over the land are currently scanning, and representing.
But we could have a transit van race, which would probably be the most expensive slot racing category ever devised.
What are they, 250 quid each or something?
It might even get on the entry list at Goodwood.
Transit van. Well, actually, a racing Velosaurus. I don't know how much an individual Velosaur car costs. Yeah, I think it's more than that.
Yeah, it's more than my actual car.
I'm laughing because it's probably true. Not as a disparity to your car, but those cars are so expensive.
You can buy a 2005 Mini Cooper for less money than a Velosaur stock car. It's true.
Flog the Mini, mate. It's worth it. I mean, buses aren't that bad. Flog the Mini and get a Velosaur.
No.
You know you
in
want
fact,
to.
I'm in the market for more Minis in 1/32 scale because my John Lennon and Beatles collection. So I've got one of the Diamond Edition sets of not Italian job Minis that came out a couple of years ago to do the other 3 Minis with. The Lennon one having been a pink one with flowers on, which will cause heartache to collectors that I've painted it black. And it's not even the Rolling Stones, it's the Beatles. So I've got a Diamond Edition set, which is going to become Beatles related. But then, it's so nearly the Italian job set, and the Italian job sets are so expensive. And the Platinum Edition, is it they called it? It's only slightly off. It has only got 1 figure in each car as opposed to 2. And the blue Mini is not BMC Island blue. It's just a odd sort of royal blue. But the other 2 cars are the correct colours. So I'm thinking, okay, I had an Italian job set. I sold it when I was skint, or wanted to buy different slot cars. And I really wish I hadn't. So maybe I can just paint a blue one, because I have been looking at Italian job Minis lately, and they did that set, didn't they? In fact, it was probably in John Lewis and Waitrose with a red and a blue one, in a box with a standard figure of 8 track, and the cars from that set are now going for 80 quid each on the Bay of E, with no headlights and with bits missing all over them. So, really, it's a broken toy. It's not 80 quid.
This is where Facebook Marketplace is probably a better. You've somebody who's clearing out the kids' room.
No, clearly they're wise to it on Facebook Marketplace as well.
Okay. I was just, as you were saying that, quoting different, I suddenly thought we need Adrian Norman we need Adrian on hand, don't we, as a kind of guru is the wrong word, the kind of what's the word for somebody? Do you remember when it was fantasy football and they had Stato, and Stato knew everything? All this sort of when it's a font of all this. So Adrian can sit because he's got those all. And no, he's not a no. That's not a no. No.
That's a shame, because he could be Adrian Gnome Man.
That's blowing any chance of him coming on now. No, it's for those who don't know. Adrian used to work at Scalextric, and he has for years been co-author or author in his own right of the updated Ultimate Scalextric's Guide, and just was clear each one's proving the last one indeed wasn't the ultimate. But anyway, the he's now
like the immortal Ayrton Senna. Well,
it's just, he's now got a 10-volume set of everything. I mean, it's just everything from British, French, Spanish, Mexican, whatever. If Scalextric made it, boom, he's in there. So he would be able to quote. He would right at the top of the show when you were confusing your C numbers. He'd have been on that like a headmaster going, "No, Garton, you're wrong. It's such and such." Do extra, extra whatever. I didn't go to a public school, so I don't know what they did extra. Anyway, now that we're into sort of all of that land, we probably ought to stop. Giddy with excitement. Amazing.
Yeah, this is what Swindon does to people, isn't it? It's in a new venue.
Well, I was going to say we should just round up to say we're imminently going to the Swindon swap meet, possibly.
Yes.
Are you definitely going?
Definitely going. My taxi's booked. As much as... Well, it's Lawrence who's booked the table. We are both going to take some of our stuff. Of course. We are going to be traders. But not selling £1,000 worth of stuff. So it's of no interest to anyone
listening. They're not. Yes. They're selling old heirlooms. Nothing that they bought recently.
15 car bodies, which might be of interest to people, and maybe 10 or 12 cars, if I can bear to part with some of them. But it's all for a higher purpose, which is finishing off my 4 cars. Because now Slot Rally GB, I have to talk about it. I have to. It's genetic, I think. 4 cars per rally, maximum, that's fine. But the same 4 cars, if you're entering the championship, you have to use the same 4 cars at all events. Which is actually quite good because it limits the number of parts you have to buy quite significantly. So 3 classes, classic, 80s and 90s, and modern. I've decided not to run a modern car because looking at the results in recent years, in fact over the last decade, you need to be running an NSR, and NSR cars aren't rally cars. They might have a figure in them, but they're not rally cars. So, it's no point. My Ninko Subaru is my best modern rally car, which is from 2005, so it's not that modern. And I
was going to say the definitions, the names of these classes probably need some revision, don't they? Because modern, I think, starts at 24 years ago. So, not that modern.
Yeah, exactly. And my Yaris hybrid was great, but it wouldn't compete with anything. I've now finished it off with Ninko running parts, so it will go quite nicely, but will it compete? Nah. And also, I don't want to knock the rear wing off because it's huge and it's only stuck on with super glue. So, I won't be running a modern. They can play with them if they want. I've got 2 classics. I found a chassis, a plastic chassis, because it has to be plastic, has to be in line. Mm-hmm. I've got a RevoSlot Escort body, and it turns out it fits perfectly on the Scalextric Datsun 260Z, which is a terrible chassis in itself. But guess what? Mr. Amato makes a 3D chassis, a wide 3D chassis for the 260Z, because he also sells wide arches for it, which actually fits perfectly to my RevoSlot Escort body. So I should be running that. I should be running in classic a Scalextric Porsche 911 3-litre RSR to try and hoover up some points amongst the standard Scalextric cars. And
you dreadful pot hunter, you.
I am. Yeah. Well, if you're making, if you've managed to explain to your wife that you need to, or any sane person that you need to travel around the countryside to race toy cars, you better go and have an aim in life. Aim to come back with a framed, photocopied piece of paper.
That's sometimes you get little plastic cups and things, so
I have got a cup from Scale Models, Slot Rally. I came third in standard Scalextric. See, this is I know my turf. Clearly.
So you've got form.
Totally out of my depth in terms of building competitive cars, but standard Scalextric, mint.
Well, I can't talk about Paul Handy because no one will remember, although I do talk about it. When we did all the classes, I insisted there was a class for every manufacturer to try and encourage people. So there was a class for standard Carrera, standard SCX, standard, and I entered the Carrera and the GOM class. You won't be surprised to learn that I won those classes because, of course, nobody else took up the challenge. But I like to think that was the beginning. If that had been persevered with, there would be Carrera rally cars running around now. But I digress. And we're talking rallying again, so we better stop. So we're going to Swindon on Sunday, and you're going to be the other side of the table. So I think
it's been a while.
I think that's
I helped Alec out a couple of times, and he allowed me a bit of space on the end of his third table. But it's been a while since I've done any trading, and it's good fun.
Right. Well, I'm looking forward to it. We may conduct it as something of an interview where I find out for the listeners what it's like to be the other side of the table at a swap meet.
Nice. You can do that.
Yeah,
it's quite like standing behind a table, generally, watching people pour your possessions.
I was going to say, but I imagine is it like a little bit more specialised than a car boot sale, where you get the things you're wanting to sell are being ripped out of your hands as you get them out of the car by eager professional traders looking for what value you've got.
I can't honestly remember the sensation, so I will be able to describe it anew and afresh.
As if live.
I know. I will be like Madonna.
What, aged and
trading for the very first time.
On that line,
with your Ninkos next to mine.
Brilliant.
We are turning into the hinge and bracket of slot cars, aren't we?
I'm not going to ask which is which. Right, time to say goodbye for now. Thank you for listening. Listen again soon because you'll hear all sorts of more rubbish. And remember, don't take anything too seriously. So I'll say goodbye for now.
I'll say goodbye for now too.
Bye then.
Bye.